at what point did you get a dedicated HR recruiter? At what point do you think it's necessary for a firm?
Yeah, we started doing, we kind of had an office manager type HR person, but ultimately it was a few years ago, it was before the pandemic. We just got too big. We're up to like 25 lawyers and 100 staff. And so now you got to have like a dedicated finance team, CFO, controller, like HR, chief people officer. So now we have, ultimately, in the beginning, when you start your firm, you're probably doing everything. When I say you, the lawyer, you're probably running payroll, you're dealing with HR issues. But ultimately, you just can't, I used to respond to like all the social media stuff myself, it wasn't that many, but it's just going to become too big at some point. Even when you would like schedule me, you just kind of contact me directly. Now I have to have an executive assistant. She's handling everything. Thank God, God bless her. So sometimes you're just going to be too big. You gotta staff up and manage the team. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to scale and grow like you need to.
So you were that tip of the spear for the Dunbar's number. I think Dunbar's number is from 50 to 150. So first of all, I applaud you for that, and that speaks to you like being personable and having a good culture kind of naturally. The other thing that just personally me sharing Neama is what I found is like those were for me were difficult because of those non-revenue generating employees, right? They start to hit your margins, but what I found was like, oh my gosh, it's just accelerated our growth so much more, and I wish I would have even done it earlier.
Yeah, it's going to make your life easier, remove you from some of those, like HR decisions. It can really kind of bog you down, in terms of conducting interviews, someone that you trust, just to like screen through people that just aren't going to be a good fit. It's ultimately, right, we're in the service industry and your time and my time is valuable, right? So to the extent that you're spending time on things and again, I say it respectfully, someone else could be doing, that's a bad business decision.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you got to spend time on what you like to do, where you have passion or where you can have the most impact, I guess, because especially yourself, you have the highest hourly rate. Like everyone has an hourly rate, and that's just true for all of us. And one of the other things too I like to talk about as well is we talk about marketing, but it's sales, it's intake. Yeah. So just general philosophies here. Are you in-house intake? Are you, dedicated intake team? Are you having the attorneys do intake? I've heard, Anajar Levine, the very large firm in Florida, they do all their intake by attorneys, and others, Gary Falkowitz is saying, hey, dedicated intake specialists. Where do you sit on the intake side of things?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a hybrid. We have intake specialists, but they're our most senior staff, because the last thing you want to do is run these amazing campaigns and you have people that don't know how to talk to clients. Obviously the first time they're calling a law firm, they're scared, they're upset. If you don't have the people that can ask the right questions and to deal with these potential clients, you're going to lose them to the other firm. There's 100 other firms out there they can call. So we put our top staff as the front line, right? As soon as even a reception calls a potential client, it goes to our dedicated intake team. But on top of that, we have dedicated intake attorneys. That is all they do. So they are there, and like for instance, Liana is one of them. You mentioned her before the show. She's fantastic. She does a lot of our TikToks. She's the most senior attorney on our intake team, and she manages everyone, and she's great. She's personable, she's likable, and she makes sure that we don't lose a potential client to another firm. And then on top of it, because the intake attorneys can't be on call 24/7, we have an on-call system, and this is something I picked up when I was a government attorney. So if you're at the U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, guess what? You're going to be on call once, maybe twice a month. You got to pick up the phone. So for the government, FBI would call and say, we arrested this person or we want to get this search warrant. The attorney has to make a decision. So we have an on-call system here at the firm. We got to take call. Obviously, we work around people's schedules because, look, it can be 24 hours a day. Call center may call, and you got to make a decision, yay or nay, while the potential client's on the phone with limited information, whether you want to take the case, refer it out, or reject it. So that's kind of how we do it, and we want to make sure that we cover it all and we don't lose any leads.
Yeah, and one thing, first of all, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of you're on the cutting edge, right? So you're doing the Google Screen, the local service ads, and you rank by region, response, and review. And we talked to a lot of prospects, and they're like, well, I'm not showing up in Google Screen. And I'll go check out their call rail, and I see a bunch of missed calls, or I see it going to an outsourced intake team. And it's like, that's because your response isn't good enough. Google's wants to send it to someone else.
Yeah. If I see call rail and I see a missed call, I mean, like, you're going to see smoke coming out of my ears. I mean, that's the worst thing that an attorney can do. You're breaking your back, your marketing, your digital team to get these leads. And if your intake team is dropping the ball, I mean, those leads cost thousands of dollars, the good ones at least. I mean, we know that. We know how much a good opportunity is. So, I mean, that would never happen. So you got to build that robust intake team to take your calls. Otherwise, your marketing skills are for naught.
I couldn't agree more. And also just that whole experience, right? And I wanted to kind of comment on one of the things you said on our last interview. You said, you've learned that not all calls are created equal, not all leads are created equal, and to kind of focus on the quality and being the initial call is that important, opposed to chasing, recycled leads. So explain, what do you mean by that? Are you referring to like lead gen companies where, they're sourcing out a bunch of leads, or is it you're ranking eighth position?
Yeah, I mean, obviously lead gen companies, those tend to be bad, right? Because anyway, I mean, we can kind of have a whole show about that. But look, even Google Ads, right? Look, you got to be that first call, and the difference between what we do and what most people do is, well, if you're doing e-commerce, man, someone's clicking around, you're the fifth site, and they make a transaction, you close the deal, great, you close the deal. But for us, if you're the fifth click or the fifth call, it's a case that's been rejected by 4 other firms. So in my book I wrote, it's like Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. If you're not first in PI, you're last. So you're going to be better off spending money to get to that first position. Make sure you're first call, because look, you're getting calls, but potential clients are working down the list. That's a case that's been rejected by other firms. That's not something that you want.
Absolutely. Right, and that also speaks to your marketing with your Google Ads, with what you're bidding, and also your SEO strategy to show up ranking number one. Because a lot of people complain, they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting any great calls from SEO," and I look and I'm like, "Well, you're ranking sixth. The person that's getting the good calls are in the 1, 2, and 3 position." The other thing that, just briefly before I want to jump to a couple final questions here, Neama, and so this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Is Google Ads? So you mentioned it, and from what I've seen, we work with about 44, 45 PI firms. They're in the, top of 7 figures, mini 8, and then a few 9-figure firms. And being transparent, I haven't seen personal injury work very well from a Google Ads perspective. Are they looking at it wrong? Not the long play from like a referral standpoint and the reviews, or is it come down to intake? What do you see from the Google Ads perspective?
Yeah, I mean, Google Ads, right? I mean, obviously, every year the clicks keep increasing. And what I say is, SEO is like dating, and lawyers want it right away. I mean, Google Ads are like, prostitution, so it's great. You get that quick fix. Obviously, the ideal way to do things is to rank in the organic, right? That's always going to be better quality. Those are our potential clients that, have spent some time on your site, they've gotten some information, and they're ready to actually pick up the phone and call. And once they do, they're ready to become clients. Whereas, like, how much information is in the Google ad copy in that text, You don't know if it's necessarily relevant. You don't know if the person is going to be a good potential client. But you're getting that immediate influx of calls. It might not be the best quality, but you're getting the calls. So, like, what I would encourage everyone to do, if you can remain patient and you can do it right, you got to do SEO. I mean, that's just the best way to be successful over the long term.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And first of all, I'm a huge omni-channel advocate. Yeah. I think all marketing works. It's attention arbitrage. Some channels work better than others. It all kind of factors into your CAC, your cost of client acquisition, cost to acquire a client, and how that plays into lifetime value. And so do you still see Google Ads though? Because when I'm looking like $500, $600 a click. California is more expensive than, say, Oklahoma. Sure. You still see the numbers that make it worthwhile.
Look, it's changing over time, right? Originally, you just had your Google Ads, right? Then GMB came in, right? Everyone's going from desktop to mobile, so that becomes a lot more important. Now you got local service ads that are coming in. So, it's constantly shifting over time. I would say Google Ads are becoming less important because people are becoming more sophisticated because of GMB, because of LSA. But I still think you got to do it all. Obviously, look, in an ideal world, you're showing up at all three: LSA, Google Ads, and GMB, and you got some sort of organic listing, at least on the first page. I mean, the client's going to think, a potential client, you're everywhere. I mean, that's really what you want to be. I don't care if it's retargeting. I don't care if it's billboards, TV. Ultimately, the reason why this is important is this. And again, I kind of compared e-commerce to PI, but let me just compare PI to other areas of the law. When clients hire a PI firm, they're not paying anything up front. Most of the firms charge the same amount, right? You're 33% or 40%. So they're going to hire the firm that they think is the biggest, the baddest, and the best, right? Because they're not paying anything out of pocket. It's not like criminal where you got to get a retainer. There's no negotiation really, and they're ready to close the deal. So you got to be big, and the client's got to think that you're the biggest and the best. So that kind of omni strategy that you're talking about is what closes, as opposed to them thinking you're a one man or one woman show.
That's such a great piece of advice, and they see you're building that digital brand. They see you. They may not click into Google Ads, but they see you again in the maps, and they recognize you in the ads, and then they see in the organic. They're like, well, I need to click on this individual. He's clearly, and it's a perception thing that you're perceived as the best in those positions. A couple final questions here, Neama. The first one I wanted to just ask, there's so much talk about vision. Do you have a vivid vision, Cameron Harold? And, what does the vision look like? What are you striving for your firm and your business? Like, what's the big picture? Have you set that, or are you still looking more to kind of like the short-term approach for the firm?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a different story because I never thought I was going to do PI, right? I was big law, I was a prosecutor, I was being vetted for the bench, I was going to be a judge. And then it turned out we had a couple of kids, and my wife was also an attorney, she represents foster kids. We just couldn't afford it. So I kind of backed into PI because my partner got into it, but I didn't really hold it in a high regard. I thought, like, look, these are people that really are just in it to make money. They don't necessarily care about the practice of law. So on one hand, I'm not trying to sell myself. I really want to kind of do things right and change the perception of PI lawyers. We have the worst perception as far as lawyers out there. People already don't like lawyers, PI lawyers. So, that's why I kind of do, the traditional legal analyst stuff. So like, okay, this guy's a PI lawyer, but he's on Fox or CNN or whatever kind of news channel you like, right? To kind of raise the stature of PI. That's one. I want to provide good service. But another thing about just law in general, it can be a miserable place to work. Law students aren't happy, lawyers aren't happy. So what I like to do is bring in cool people. Obviously, I like you, I like talking to you, but I want people that I go to work and I see and I'm happy because you're going to spend more time with your coworkers and your colleagues than you do your own family. So we try to make it a fun place to work. That's why, even though I do the serious stuff and breaking news, we do all sorts of funny trends on TikTok because, look, man, these are my friends. I want to work with them, and I want this to be a fun place to work. So, ultimately, growth is something that's going to happen when you surround yourself with good people and they're loyal and you work hard. And, we've kind of been blessed, but, I don't know if that answers the question, but really, that's my vision, kind of a work hard, play hard, fun place to work.